Hello, everyone, and welcome to another round of WOR Season 19. It is round 9 of the season. We are at Austria for Tier 3, and we've got 2 races left. And we are at one of the shortest circuits on the calendar, a 2.683 mile circuit, 10 corners, 3 DRS zones. It's a very, very interesting circuit. A lot of action to be prepared on the in the Styrian Hills. In the Styrian Mountains, I should say. Yeah, like I said, round 9 of the season, 2 races to go. One more next week, and we will be underway. Tonight, I am joined by none other than my new and hopefully for this week and next week commentary partner, Harrison. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. This is the penultimate round of the season, of course. One more to go after this at Brazil. The championship can be won here in this race. Luca currently leads BRT Thomas by 41 points, which means that if he fails to outscore the Haas driver by 16 points, then Luca will be crowned champion of season 19.
Yeah, an excellent job by Luca this season, claiming 2 race wins and 2 third-place finishes. With most wins on a season from any of the drivers so far. We did miss Canada last week due to a limited number of drivers, but we power on with 2 races to go. The Haas looking to claim the Tier 3 championship, the highest tier on the WR Thursday tier list. But we are back in racing. We are into qualifying now, a couple minutes in. A couple drivers are on their out laps. If we just get all the data up and everything, I believe there is a Williams of OVR Thomas who will be the first to set a lap, coming around the final corner now to start his lap. He has invalidated on the out lap, but that should remain okay as the Williams driver comes down into turn 1. It's just all about banker, lock up into the first corner on that inside right tyre, front right tyre, and now that's really going to cost him as we go down the straight towards the turn 3 corner, quick left as well into that, which is technically considered turn 2, but in through turn 3 now. OVR Thomas absolutely needs to get a decent banker in. It's very hard around this circuit to get saving track limits, deceptively difficult in some places, so you need to make sure you maximise every minute and every lap of this session. Know the limits beforehand. If you don't, you are going to be within a massive surprise. That Williams finding those limits, being within millimetres of the race circuit within the first couple of sectors, and even the first part of sector 3. Now through the final couple of corners, can the Williams make his way into a very decent start to the session? He does a 1 minute 3.8. We're already into the 1 minute 3s. Excellent job, and he gets beaten by Jude in the Mercedes, goes nearly 3.5 tenths quicker. So in this early part of the session, Harrison, what are you looking for from these drivers? Are you looking for them just to get a clean bankering or without too much pushing, or is there going to be everyone just going to go pedal to the metal? Yeah.
Well, just for a confidence point of view, you want to be getting a banker on the board, because some of these drivers maybe going for 2 runs, maybe going for 3 runs. Now's the time to get a clean banker in. Even if it has a few mistakes in it, it just allows you to have that confidence to know that if you go on your final push lap, you can take more risks, you can push the boundaries. If you overstep the boundaries, you have that initial lap to fall back on, as Luca goes P1, beats Jude by half a tenth.
Yeah.
But this track is notoriously difficult for track limits, so getting a banker here really is key.
Yeah, absolutely is, because you need to make sure you just get something on the board, and you need to make sure you cannot afford to go into that final run without a tyre on the board, because you're going to then overpush. You're going to then feel under pressure. This is one of the circuits, same with Canada last week, even though these guys didn't race here, you would want to go into that race weekend without any sort of into those final runs with at least something on the board. So at worst you might fall down the grid a couple of spots, but your overall position will be whereabout you need to be. S95 Dome currently on a lap. He's going through sector 3 right now, very squirrely on the exit of that left right, very quick left right Now through the final two couple right-handers up towards the line, 1 minute 4 dead, puts him 6 tenths behind the current provisional pole sitter, and puts himself in P10 ahead of Liam Hardman, who doesn't seem to have quite the representative lap.
Well, we'll see what the McLaren driver can do in his upcoming runs. He'll be hoping to improve on that 104.4. But as I said last week in the Tier 6 Canada race, this is another one that will be decided by track limits. Whether it's in qualifying, whether it's in the race, keeping your nose clean, rather than maybe you having outright pace as Dettel goes for a spin at turn 3, keeping your nose clean in terms of track limits is so much more beneficial than overstepping the mark, especially as this grid is going to be, no doubt, close the entire race, with 3 seconds maybe separating 5 or 6 cars. So it's just going to be crucial to just keep your nose clean.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw as Dettel done that spin about 20 seconds earlier, the Alpine of F95 Dome had the exact same thing as you were speaking. So so he's quite. It's already showing that turn 3 exit is really catching drivers out, as they're unable to get the optimized exit that they want. Considering the track temperature is probably a little bit colder because the air temperature and the cloud, and it's very overcast. You really do not.
Dettel's invalidated his time before starting.
Yeah, so that's very unfortunate for the Sauber. So he yet again has to go and do another outlap, and he might not even have the fuel for it. But yeah, you've got to be careful with the traction zones here, especially when it is a little bit colder. There isn't as much track evolution, and there's not much rubber laid down. So with that in mind, we're going to see Jude now going on his second lap of the session already. Only a third of the way in now, and these guys are already going for their second laps. That's how short this circuit is. He's now just over a tenth up in the first 2 sectors. What can he do in the final part of the lap? He looks very, very confident here as he gets to the outside part of the circuit to cut in for the line, and he invalidates. That is absolutely unfortunate for the Mercedes. Yeah, and he'll be utterly disappointed with that, considering how well his lap was going to go. That was going to put him fastest based on his sector 2 time, first 2 sector times. And now that is going to have quite a big psychological effect on him.
Well, I don't know if you're looking at the telemetry through turn 9 there. He did not lift an inch. I was looking at it's going to be very close with the track boundaries if he keeps it in. He didn't quite manage to keep it in, but that'll be playing on his mind for his final run now. Even with 10 minutes left, it's a long time to think about it for his final run on these new set of tyres. And that can just be the difference between you being on pole and you not being on pole. A few hundredths can all make the difference in these tiers, and OVR Thomas is invalidated, might be on an in lap. Who's on a lap?
Matthew
Lucas.
Oh, okay. Where's Lucas?
Going through the middle sector, 2 tenths up at the moment. And keeps it nearly completely pinned through turn 7, I believe that is.
Yep.
Ferrari driver will be looking to perhaps break into that top 4, top 3 even. Smaller through turn 9. Keeping a bit more cautious than Jude did. Up towards the line, where can he put the Ferrari? He goes P2. 3.5 tenth improvement, which around here is rather a lot of time. Only less than half a tenth now behind Luca, who is on his outlap for what I think is his second run. And that is a big confidence boost going into this final run, because he knows that he's got a brilliant time on the board. He can chuck all of his skill at this, and who knows where I'll end up.
Yeah, people will be asking, why do we go on about confidence? Why do we go on about confidence? Confidence is key in racing, in F1 in particular. You want to have the utmost confidence in not just your car, but your driving ability on the circuit. Because if you do not have that confidence going into specifically a final qualifying run, you're going to lose time just naturally, because you're going to be hesitant. Hesitancy in this close of a tier, normally, a 2 tenths would cost you maybe a position. 2 tenths in a tier like this could cost you 6 or 7 positions. So you do not want any hesitancy. But S95 Dome, even though I had a little bit of kick of oversteer, goes P7 and with a 1 minute 3.9. And is only half a second off of Luca, who is currently on a lap going through the final part of it. He's going to go towards the penultimate corner. Just got to keep it pinned here as best as you possibly can without losing as much time. He goes wide and he invalidates. And that is the mistake from the championship leader, no less. Yes, he's half. Unfortunately, he was half a second down. I don't know if that's because he lifted at the end, but that and it's a spin, and that's another thing you've got to be careful about, because if you spin, he's been disqualified. He's been disqualified. Our championship leader has, in a day he could win the championship, has been disqualified from the session and will now start right at the back of the pack in P13. That is crucial for his championship hopes.
Oh, I can't believe my eyes, quite frankly. An invalidation at the final corner, and then, well, what he'll look back on as a needless spin, really. Perhaps he got unlucky with the cars coming out of the pit lane, but that is a catastrophic error from our championship leader, who will be now starting last for the Austrian Grand Prix here, which means to say that it's now Evie Lucas on provisional pole. Yeah. We're closely followed by Jude, which it's a new mindset now for Lucas. He was P2, he was chasing a target, now he is the target. So how much risk is he now willing to put in this lap, do you think?
I think he's going to have the same sort of risk he'd go for if he was P2. These guys are so fast, faster than I can ever imagine, to be honest. And these guys just know the limits, and they just try and push it over the edge. Lucas will be going as hard as ever, and then all of a sudden he's back down to P2. OVR Thomas goes fastest with a 3.3. The Williams driver putting himself to the top of the timesheets, and that is what you've got to be thinking. You've got to be thinking, oh, on P1, it's not going to be an easy time. You cannot
not much longer, I don't think.
Yeah, not for much longer, as Jude comes across the line, 3.2, over a tenth clear of the Williams. Mercedes now puts himself clear with just under 6 minutes to go in the session.
That's a bold statement from Jude. 6 minutes left to go, but to be clear by a tenth and a half in this tier is big. Around this track in this tier is massive. 1.5 tenths. That's rather a big gap to close, and I think a few of these drivers may well have done the 3 runs now, so I don't know how many of them we'll see back out. Lucas is just going through the first sector now, just under a tenth up. We'll keep following this Ferrari, as he was on provisional pole. We're looking to get back there. Keeps it very tidy out of turn 4. Again, tidiness is key here. You want to be pushing the limits, but you don't want to be squirrely, because that's when you can very easily start losing time, as he's now 1.5 tenths up. This is going to be close with Jude. He's a good final 2 corners. Brilliant direction change to turn 9. Very small lift. Keeps it valid through turn 10 and up towards the line. Does not quite enough to take it back. 6/100ths down from Jude. And surely a lot of these drivers now, as he runs wide, have used their tyre allocations.
They could have, but at the same time, you can go for a second run on softs on these around this track, because it's so short. You can take the opportunity to use them for a second run and not lose too much performance in the first, or up until basically the final 2 corners. You might lose 100th or 2, but if you have more confidence, that will certainly benefit you. But so we will probably be seeing everyone who is now filing into the pits come out for one final run. Gavrock up to the line, he goes P8 in the session, exact same time as the RB of Ollie, of a 3.659, and that is fairly far off. As NASCAR goes into P3 with a 3.3, and Dettel goes 3.8 and pops himself into P10 ahead of S95 Dome and Liam Hardsman. All but one driver now into the 1 minute freeze, but I wouldn't be surprised if the McLaren is also in that region as well. But these guys are now starting to feel the track. The track is starting to reach its peak. What who will come on to pole, because it is absolutely ridiculously close. We've got 3 drivers within a tenth at the top end of the field, 5 drivers within 2.5, a quarter of a second. So it is going to come down to the wire.
Well, it looks brilliant for the Mercedes duo so far, P1 and P3 provisionally. But as we often see in league racing and in real life, it can all change just like that. These drivers have to be on their peak game, especially as this will be their final run of Q3. I don't think we'll see anyone down in the 102s, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get close, with some of these drivers really pushing their cars to the limits, and some of them I'm sure will just about manage to creep over them, as we do have now a couple of drivers out on their outlaps in the form of OVR Thomas and Leon Rolf.
And
what do you expect from these final runs?
Yeah, Leon Rolf starting his flying lap now, goes into turn 1. He will come across a slight bit of traffic. He'll need, even though there is ghosting, there's no dirty, there's no slipstream in this qualifying session. It does have a psychological effect. Having a car in your way, and he decides, I believe, to just back out of that. Yeah, he does, because he locked up into turn 3 and then just did not get the right amount of turning. So we will now switch over to the Williams of OVR Thomas, who was still weaving by the time he got into turn 1. So he, I believe, will be going for a second outlap as everyone now funnels out the pits for their one final runs. Jude will be the first person who will come to set a lap time.
Well, let's watch this Mercedes lap then. This is the important one. Can he extend his provisional pole advantage around this Spielberg circuit? Down into turn 1, down to 4th or 5th that they use. I'm probably not the best person to speak about it. Power towards turn 3, because turn 2 doesn't exist to an F1 car. Very hard braking zone here. They go right up to the curbstone on the left-hand side. Just about keep it inside of that yellow curb. Powering down towards turn 4 now, using a lot of that ERS, down to 50%. Saving more than others I've seen. I've seen others go down to 40 there. Through turn 4, looks nice and tidy so far. Keeps it within the track limits. Now the technical bit of this lap, the middle sector. This is where if you touch those inside curbs, you can be in a whole world of trouble. But he's kept it clean so far. Purple through the middle. Just under 100 top. 2 big commitment corners to go. Turn 9, he invalidated last time. Keeps it valid this time. Oh, he's invalidated the final corner.
And
who else is behind him?
You got Mattia Manga, who is coming up to the line now. He's on his flying run. He's over a tenth and a half up, heading into sector 3. He will be 2 tenths up, heading into the end of the lap. He'll place himself in 5th place. Leon Rolf has retired from the session in the pit lane, I believe, and that is his session done. He will be P6 by the end of it. EVR Lucas will come up to the line. He was 700ths down, and now will only be 8 thousandths. He does not improve. He will remain P2 at this time. Next up, OVR Lucas coming round the final couple of corners. He invalidates, and this track limits is taking drivers one by one. Brent is next. He's also invalidated. Gavrok is up next. One of the men who can take Lucas championship away and make sure he stays in it for the final round. And he goes up to the line. 3.3 puts himself P3, 3/10 gain, but is not enough for the front row. We've got a RB now. Ollie crosses the line. NASCAR crosses the line, does not improve. The Sauber of Dettel crosses the line, doesn't improve. And I believe Jude crosses the line. He won't improve, but he doesn't need to. That is their qualifying session, and that is an excellent job from the Mercedes driver, who takes pole position just over half a tenth clear of the Ferrari of Lucas.
Well, what did we say earlier? Track limits are going to decide this one, and they very nearly did. Unfortunately, a lot of these drivers maybe not managing to improve on their last laps, but if they had, then Jude would have been kicking himself. But as we predicted here, the field is separated by no more than, well, just half a second, really. Just every single driver making it into the 103s. Very unfortunate for Luca to be disqualified. He could have been right up there with Jude and Lucas, but Are we about to see a rather massive recovery drive from the Haas driver?
Well, he's going to have to, because he needs to make sure he minimises the points gain from his championship rivals tonight. If we go back to the standings, just to remind ourselves, Luca leading over Thomas, 41 points clear. Thomas not in the top end of the field, who he needs 16 points. So he'll need to get second or higher to stay in this championship hunt. If Luca doesn't score, second's good enough. But if Luca does score, and he gets, I think, sixth or if Luca gets sixth or higher, I think Luca wins the championship. Gavrock needs to win and hope Luca doesn't score more than eighth, and that is a very, very difficult thing to ask, because that Haas driver has been nothing but consistent, having very good finishes. Has finished every race he has so far this season. Finished no worse than 7th.
Well, coming towards the end of this season, of course, getting to this stage is one thing, rounding out your championship is a whole other. And as we saw there, perhaps it was just a lapse of judgment, perhaps it was a lapse in concentration, but it's mistakes like that, and all of a sudden you really do find yourself in trouble. So he's going to have a good recovery drive in this race, score some decent points. Even if the championship gets taken to the next round, he needs to be accepting that could happen. Don't rule that out as an option, as we're now going to, I believe, have a restart of the lobby as we're going to the race soon.
Yeah, I believe we are just getting everything reset, and then we'll be able to get underway shortly. So for a brief moment, we will just take a intermission just while everything gets ready. We'll be back in the next couple minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to WOR Tier 3. We are now about to get into the race, and we've been greeted by, for us, a pleasant surprise, and for the drivers, a heftily unpleasant surprise. It is raining, guys. Full wet weather, and I believe it's just become our little curse for the last two races, Harrison, because for the last 2 weeks, it is absolutely poured down.
Well, we love to see it as commentators. The drivers, not so much as you mentioned, but your race priorities change now. Because obviously, a dry race, you got DRS. You can make positions up a lot easier compared to a wet race where there's no DRS. And quite frankly, your overtakes have to be a lot more manual, which is what we love to see. The drivers actually having to work for their overtakes rather than just blasting past with DRS. Obviously, 13 of them on a wet start into turn one is going to be something. And we've got to remember, we've got Luke at the back. How much risk do you take on a start like this when you've got all these drivers in front of you?
I believe if you're Luke, you've got 36 laps, you're not going to take any sort of risk. You know it's wet, these guys are going to have some drivers might have a bit of issue and you might take advantage. Luca needs to think that he needs to be confident. These guys luckily can change their setups if they have a wet one available. Doubt many of them do, but we're gonna see whether that makes any sort of difference here as we are waiting to get underway. Luca has all the work to do, but it is a very mixed grid, because considering that even though these guys are very close, some drivers who are normally at the front in what I've seen in this tier are not right there outside of Luca today as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether that has any impact as well. I'm to go to race director. Let's quickly go to race director. Jude is on pole ahead of Lucas, Gavrock P3, NASCAR P4, Thomas P5, and the driver who can keep Luca from taking the championship here tonight, Mattia Manga P6, Leon Rolf P7, Brent in the Red Bull P8, Ollie in the V-Carb P9, Liam Hardman rounds out the top 10 with S95 Dome in P11, Dettel P12, and Luca in P13. We will be about to get underway very shortly, and I believe we are about to any time now. Here we go. We are about to get ready. It'll be 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights for Tier 3 Austria. And it is lights out and away we go. Very wet start. Very, very difficult start for drivers to get underway. But Jude does it to perfection. Lucas does not get the greatest of start. He's going to go 3 wide into turn 1 with a Mercedes and a Haas. Gavrock gets around the outside. Does a very, very nice line down there. And manages to claim P2 off the Ferrari. There's battling behind with NASCAR and Thomas in P4 and 5. There's a bit of damage I saw fly off one of the cars. As we now see drivers go side by side. Gavrock takes the lead away from Jude. Jude had one run wide, and Lucas is now fighting the Mercedes as we go down towards turn 4. Can the Ferrari get by? He'll have the inside line, but the outside line will give him the Mercedes a bit more traction on the exit. But the Ferrari has managed to outpace the Mercedes, who might be struggling a little bit more in early conditions while they're on inters and wets. I believe there's a couple different drivers. Jude, Thomas, both on the inters. Everyone else on the wets. Lucas is up to P10. Actually, he's dropped down from P9. Dettel is up to P9. Leon Rolf has got past Brent as well. Mattia Mango and Jude going to go side by side, and Jude drops another position. He is down to 4th place. This has not been the start the Mercedes wanted.
Well, maybe they know something we don't. We don't have the weather forecast, of course, and I have seen it before where drivers have started on the inters. They've dealt with the pain for the first few laps until the dry line forms, and then it comes good. So we'll have to see what happens with Jude and Thomas, but they'll just have to suck up the pain for now as they both defend from NASCAR down towards turn 3. Shocking camera angle, I must say. Can't really see what's going on. The Williams down the inside, both Mercedes together. You really don't want to be making contact, especially in high-profile race like this. There's no DRS in these conditions, which means that drivers' ERS saving will play a lot more into how these overtakes have pan out. And we can see now the top three perhaps just managing to break away from the two Inter's runners, as their full wets will be able to disperse the water with greater effect and provide them with more grip. But if this track starts to dry out, we could see the flip side, couldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely, because the Inters will come into effect and the drivers on the full wets will need to pit as their tyres begin to burn more. Thomas clearly is not being affected as much as Jude in the Mercedes is, as the Mercedes clearly is beginning to struggle quite significantly. Gavrock takes the fastest lap of the race and has pulled a lead of 1 second over the Ferrari of Lucas, as Mattia Manga has dropped down, is still in P3, 6 tenths behind him. As Ollie has retired from the session, I believe in the pit lane, that is the first retirement, as the RB has probably had something like damage happen to him. We're going to now go down towards turn 3, and the Sauber of Vettel looking to try and get by NASCAR at this stage. He's got his teammate of Leon Rolf in the way of him. Vettel and NASCAR going to go side by side. Vettel takes the position. Excellent job from the Sauber. He's now getting past one Mercedes. He's got another Mercedes in front of him. Meanwhile, Luca is on the back of this train here now. He's currently in P9. He's looking to get by Leon Rolf at this stage, but there isn't really much he can do. However, it is getting really, really close between Dettel and Jude. Dettel having excellent grip. He goes around down the inside, which will turn to the outside for that quick right-hander, and we get an awful camera angle on Dettel's end, but he gets through on the Mercedes. Excellent job from the Sauber.
Wow, just looking back, and Luca tries to go down the inside of Leon Rolf there into turn 9. That's difficult enough in the dry, let alone in these wet conditions. But of course, he will know this is a marathon, not a sprint. And quite frankly, I think he's had a very good start to this race. He's kept himself out of trouble. He's made a few moves. He's stuck with the train. And depending on how this weather goes, he could very easily find himself up in this top 5 battle within a few laps. As we'll go back towards the front. Matty are not quite close enough to think about a move on Evie Lucas. But just behind these guys, we've got the battle of the compounds. Thomas on the Inters, who is... I don't think those Inters have quite fired up yet. With Dettel and Jude right behind him. They seem to have found their line astern now. Because quite frankly, those first few laps were rather chaotic. It'll be interesting to find if Thomas and Jude's strategy decisions are indeed to pay off. Because the longer that they stay out and it doesn't, the less effective they will be when the track dries out.
Yeah, certainly. It's the Mercedes, even though the Williams and of Thomas and the Mercedes of Jude has managed to somewhat manage their pace to be more in line with the full wet weather, the Mercedes of Jude is considerably struggling compared to that Williams outfit a couple positions in front. Dettel is all over the back though, as the Sauber had a little bit of issue on the previous lap onto the into turn 4. Does he have the same sort of issue now? He's going to go down down straight, no DRS, remember. So this is now just battle of whether you're faster. He loses his back end into the braking zone. That rear does not look happy in turn 4. So even though he's kept with him, he's got to be very careful here, because that could ultimately not just cost him position, but cost him a number of positions, not just a Jude, but further down the field. So the Sauber needs to keep that in check, maybe move his brake bias about a little bit to further manage the front tyres. But the Sauber just continues to stick right to that Williams rear wing, because he knows he can try and make that Williams make a mistake in these more full wet tyre conditions.
Well, of course, these two do not want to be battling too much in this early stage. The gap's already nearly 3 seconds between Thomas and Mattia. Because if you battle too much at this stage, they'll find it very difficult to make their way back into that top 3. And what I must point out, Gavroche in P1, not only is he doing the perfect job as trying to keep himself in the championship battle, he's also doing the godsend for the Haas team, who currently lead the Constructors' Championship by 28 points. And considering that Luca, of course, being disqualified in qualifying, that was the big story for blocking the pit exit, he is all the way down in P8. So hats off to Gavroche, keeping Haas in this, as we'll go to Mattia, who is a lot closer to Lucas than he was a couple laps ago, as we come through the final sector. Obviously, the normal procedure in the dry to set up a move here is down the straight as Jude becomes the first driver to pick up a track limits penalty. And we're only on lap 7, so he'll be kicking himself. But the normal overtaking the dry here is just set it up down the DRS straights, but we don't have DRS. So when do you pull the pin? When do you go for the move? As down the inside Mattia goes, late on the brakes, locks at the front right but keeps it stable. Now it's a traction battle. Who's got the better traction? Mattia has not got much ERS left. As we head down towards turn 4, they're still side by side. Another battle on the brakes. This is lovely racing from the Aston and the Ferrari. I think he's still there, as Mattia just moves ahead of the Ferrari of Lucas, but is the track limit penalties just beginning to seep in now? We're about to see a change in this race.
Yeah, it could be potential Jude being, like you say, being the first driver to get a 3-second time penalty. However, Lucas has been unfortunately dropped back a little bit, maybe getting 2 warnings early on. Meanwhile, Matty and Manga having a bit of issue heading into that final corner. While he has got a little bit of a better exit, that entry did not look settled. Jude, though, statement made. Fastest lap of the race, 13.9. Those inters are certainly coming back into it. Thomas over the back of the Ferrari now as we go in down the straight. Normally DRS would be a helping hand here. However, that slipstream will have to do. Into turn 3 now. Can the Williams get by? He does so. And at the moment, the Ferrari tries to bounce back. But there's not really much he can do. They're going to continue to be side by side. The Ferrari may be using a bit more ERS than the Williams as they go down towards turn 4. Can the Williams make his way by? He just about squeezes the Ferrari out cleanly. And the Williams makes his way up into the podium place as the intermediate tyres begin to shine through. The Williams does not look like he is being affected any longer by the tyre difference, and it seems that, like you said at the start of the race, it has begun to flip.
Well, is this how the pendulum swings? These intermediate tyres on Thomas and Jude's cars, have they now finished that pain period? Are they now going to be much more beneficial in this race? As obviously we don't have a weather strategy to us, but these two will be hoping, I guess, that it dries up. Because I'd imagine a lot of these people on Inters now, they might try and go to the end if it's not, and then they're back on level terms. But if it dries up, and everyone has to stop again, then Thomas and Jude have both, effectively, gained an entire pit stop on the field. And that's Luca's gone to dries down at P9. He's hit the pit exit wall. Is this a blunder from the championship leader? He's gone on to slicks. It definitely doesn't look like slick conditions. He's got front wing damage now as well. I think this is a blunder.
I think
he's gone onto the wrong tyre.
Yeah, I have to agree that he's accidentally must have gone onto the hards, and that is costly in the championship, because now he's stuck on the Tricon pal of tyres, slipping and sliding here, there and everywhere. You've just got to be careful here, Lucas, because you do not want to go into the back of another driver or spin, and he's got the damage already. And at the moment, this looks like, oh, you've got to be careful there, because your championship rivals are in prime position right now to take advantage. You need to get to the end, back to the pits and stick on a set of inters, and then just try something and try and get a couple points out of this race. But the Haas has certainly made the error. Dettel sets the fastest lap of the race. He moved by Lucas, who is in the pit lane. Mattia Manga also going by him. Lucas has lost a significant amount of time in the pit stop cycle for the wet weather tyres to the intermediates. I believe that is down to the wet becoming significantly worse off. Gavrock leads the way by 5.2 seconds over Thomas and Jude, and this could be, even though he's got that massive gap, he will still have to pit very, very soon.
Well, my oh my oh my. What a weekend or race to forget for Luca, our championship leader. Disqualifying from qualifying, puts on the wrong tyre, the dry tyre, on a soaking wet track, and he's very nearly about to be lapped by his teammate. And it's going to take something absolutely mental now for him to be even catching up to P11. So I think we can safely say that unless something crazy happens, this championship will roll over to the final round in Brazil. Unless, of course, who was in P2, BRT Thomas, unless Thomas can secure the P2 or above, which he currently looks likely to do. It's still in Thomas's hands. He doesn't have to rely on a result from anyone else, but it's certainly made his life a whole lot easier for the Williams driver.
Yeah, he's definitely. This could be a very big comeback if he managed to do so. Luca has unfortunately, Lady Luck said what she wanted, and now her and your luck has run out at this stage. Yeah, he stayed in the race. He might as well. The good thing for him, he isn't a lap down. That means that if there is any sort of safety car or VSC, that will put him right back into play here and put him right back into some very good points. Gavrock will now pit, and he will go onto the intermediate tyres. That will leave Thomas to lead the way. Jude will come in P2. Gavrock will come out in probably P3/4, depending on where Dettel is. It's going to get very close between the two of them. As Dettel comes into turn 1, where's the Haas? The Haas is also going around the corner. Dettel moves up into the podium places, even though he has that 3-second time penalty, which is going to start taking into effect. You again, I mentioned this in Canada, you mentioned the other side of the stream again, that penalties will come into significant effect as there's a massive lock up there from Gavrock. He collided, I think, a bit with Dettel, and that almost cost him his front wing, much like Luca's front wing was costed by the wall on pit exit. And now this is not looking like the Haas's races are going as planned.
Well, I had to have a sharp intake of breath then. I was for certain that Gavroche was going straight in the back of Dettel there. My oh my. But I must say, at this present moment, the strategy calls from Jude and from Thomas to start on the intermediate tyres. Well, it's brought them a 12-second lead over the field. So, if all of these drivers do have to stop again, which I must say, even if this rain doesn't stop, what is that, 27 laps on the intermediates, I believe, for a lot of these drivers. That sounds like an awfully long way to go. So I still think at this moment, it's Thomas and Jude's race to lose here. But they have to make sure they don't lose too much time fighting, because that gap can very quickly come down here. And of course, with a safety car, it all gets eradicated entirely. But for now, advantage Thomas and Jude.
Yeah, at this point, if there is a VSC or safety car, though, this could play into Thomas and Jude's hand, because those two will just come in for a new set of intermediates, and they'll probably come out in the region of Dettel and Gavrock, or at least within a couple seconds of them, due to slow down of pace. At the moment, though, like you say, 27 laps on Inters. It doesn't look as likely to get to the end of that stage. These drivers, if they push their inters too hard, then they will have to stop again. These two in front, though, will definitely have to. Dettel, though, is trying to mount a challenge as he's trying to catch the Williams of Thomas, the Mercedes Jude. Gavrock beginning to mount a charge. He's currently 4/10 behind the Sauber. He sets the fastest lap of the race. Leon Rolf gets a 3-second time penalty. These penalties are really starting to become a nuisance for a number of these drivers. As we head now down towards turn 3, can Gavrock get close enough to Dettel at the moment. It doesn't look likely. He is catching him. He did pit a few laps late, quite a few laps after Dettel. If we look at the tyre difference, he is on 5 lap pressure inters, and that does begin to have some effect around now.
Well, a 5 lap difference in intermediates at the beginning of your stint may not be too much of a difference, but as you get through the stint, as the tyre wears, especially towards the end, having a 5 lap tyre advantage can be a massive benefit, because Dettel, who's on 7 lap old intermediates at the moment, soon to be 8, he's been on them since lap 8, so that is 28 laps for the kick driver, whereas Gavroche, who's been on them for 3 laps now, so since lap 12, well, it's still a long time, but it's only 24 laps, which can be the difference between you staying on that one set of tyres and you having to stop again and losing a plethora of positions. You're expecting this gap between Dettel and Jude to start coming down, because of course they do have the tyre advantage. But the thing that will decide this race, how many times do they have to pit again?
Not just that, how many drivers will have to pit again, but as we've got in the last couple laps, Thomas has begun to make a couple of mistakes here and there, and Jude, despite having that penalty, is closing in on the Williams driver. I'm just going to have a quick look at the penalties in that. Jude having 3 seconds, same with Dettel. NASCAR and S95 Diamond Brent also having 3 seconds. Leon Rolfe being the only driver with 6. But that 3-second penalty could come costly by the end of the race in 20 laps time. But at the moment, Jude's not focused on that. Jude's focused on the driver in front, the race leader, Thomas, who's going down, as they both go down the straight and towards turn 3. Jude not quite close enough, but Thomas has made a couple of mistakes into this 10-second time penalty for Leon Roth, and he retires from the session. He's called it a day. I'm not sure why, because he was in good points, but oh well, that's our second retirement of the session. That boosts Luca back up one more position. Jude is sticking with the Williams, but Gavroche is actually now ahead of Dettel, which is crucial because Bout Haas has shown immense pace in these intermediate stages, and while Dettel's been closing in on the top 2, the Haas of Gavroche has been closing significantly faster.
Well, one thing I'm going to point out, this is not just, we're just watching these drivers racing. We don't have the difficult jobs here. There's so much more psychological things that these drivers are thinking about while they're racing, especially in a race with a split strategy like this. They're thinking, how much do I need to push, potentially to catch the cars in front, potentially to try and go to the end. They're trying to work out whether those guys ahead will have to stop, because obviously eventually Thomas and Jude will have to stop, we hope. But there's so much more that you have to think about while you're racing on these guys right on the limit. And mistakes, quite frankly, I'm surprised we don't see more of them, to be honest.
We say that we're not. I agree to some extent that we're not surprised. That we're surprised to not see more mistakes. There's minor ones occurring from Thomas and Jude out front as their tyres begin to progress to the latter stages of their lifespan. But 3-second time penalty for Luca, that is actually quite crucial for him. If he does close up, that will be effective later on. However, at the moment, barring P11, it's just not been a good day for that Haas. But mistakes are creeping in for Thomas and Jude due to their tyre life getting more and more it's beginning to wind down. Really, it's starting to they're starting to struggle in some senses. They are getting closed in by Gavroche and Dettel at a rate of knots. Lucas with a 3-second time penalty, and these time penalties are coming thick and fast, ladies and gentlemen. But someone who is also coming thick and fast, Jude, he goes down the inside into turn 3. He makes the move stick before the braking point, and that leaves Thomas back down in P2 on track. But Jude has a 3-second time penalty. That could be the difference if Thomas can just stick with him for the rest of the race. However, they do need to be careful though, because if they have to pit yes, they'll be on the fresher tyres compared to the drivers behind, but they will be in a worse position on track. It is now make or break for the two drivers in leading the race.
Well, it's a lovely battling between the two of them. They both know that this is not only a race between themselves, this is potentially, if they start losing time, as I believe Gavroche has made a mistake in Sector 2, he's lost a lot of time to Detol, and he's now got the Aston Martin trying to go around the outside of him and goes off the track. I'm not really sure what happened as he picks up a track limit penalty. So a really very not good half lap there for the Haas driver who looked like he had some immense pace. I think what he's done there is just got on the throttle too early. It's a very difficult corner, especially in the wet, and he's just had a half spin. I don't think he had a full spin, but that's certainly lost him time. Now 3.4 seconds behind Detol. And what that means for Detol is that he no longer has to think about the car behind. He can go full push mode now. And we'll have to see what happens with that 8-second gap.
Yeah, that 8-second gap is beginning for Dettel to continue to close. He has been for a number of laps now, but that the Williams is going to have to continue a good pace right now because he's now got back by the Mercedes of Jude. They need to not fight too hard here against one another because at this stage it could be significantly costly. Gavroche in P4, Gavroche dropping to P4 must be a little bit frustrating now. He has joined what we would like to call the penalty club, because that is not, and that is not a club you will not. That's not a club you want to be part of. However, the Haas and the Aston Martin have caught the Sauber of Dettel. And this could be a crucial battle. Jude, but up behind Thomas, we've got two battles going on right now. As Dettel is having to defend from Gavroche. Gavroche up the inside, trying to make a move stick. Dettel defends nicely, gets the traction on the exit of the turn. However, they've got to be careful here because the Aston Martin is going to come and try and make an attack on them. However, he's not able to do anything at this stage as they have to stick line astern as they were in at the start of the straight. But Mattia Manga has started to see a quite a big pace advantage over Dettel in the last couple of laps and Gavroche, and he's been, because of Gavroche's mistake, he's now right with him. So could the Aston Martin become a issue for them? Thomas has a 3-second time penalty, putting him equal to Jude. And these penalties are really starting to rack up.
Well, this non-penalty club becomes ever more exclusive. 21 laps into this race here in Austria, and it's only Mattia and Liam who remain penaltyless. At this moment in time, Mattia doesn't really need to do much. I'm pretty sure Detol and Gavroche both have 3-second penalties, which they do. So he is currently a net P3 as there is a safety car. S95 Dome, I believe, has crashed on the exit of the final corner. And how that has shown the race on its head. Detol picks up a 10-second penalty for a severe collision with Gavroche. How it could all change in a matter of seconds. This is brilliant for Thomas and Jude.
At the moment,
neither of them have boxed yet, but now they get a free pit stop.
And
so,
go on, carry on. Sorry, carry on. I thought you were.
Yeah, this is completely turned the race on its head. We're presuming now that it's going to rain until the end, but if it doesn't, what tyre do you go on? If the rain stops in a few laps, do you risk a slick? Do you continue on the inters? There's potentially a lot of strategy calls that these guys are going through in their heads, and we'll have to see what they choose as they all peel into the pits. But Thomas and Jude, they must be beaming. What a strategy this is turning out to be.
Yeah, it is. This has become like lady luck for them too. However, Thomas, even though it is now led to him taking the lead of the race, it brings Luca back into this, and that is the crucial thing. He did not want his championship rival anywhere near this pack because he wanted to make sure he maximised his points gain over the Haas. But I did see that collision with Dettel and Gavrock. That happened as the safety car got called because and it was the most minor of taps there. In any other circumstance, will racing, but and rubbing to racing, but in that situation, the safety car got called as they touched, and that is a 10-second. Dettel will not be able to get back because now he's had to serve it under the safety car.
Well, yeah, as you just pointed out, under normal circumstances, if you don't have to box again, that's the sort of penalty that can get removed. But he's had to serve it now, so P6 for Dettel then. Work to do. Everyone now on brand new inters, and look who's at the back of the pack and who's going to be back on with everyone else now. This is Lady Luck playing her hand again. What does he do with this? Does he accept that just stay where you are? You had your luck granted. I'm not able to do the maths in my head that quickly as to how high he needs to get up the field, but with Dettel coming in again, I believe. I don't know what he's come in for. With Thomas currently P1, this championship, I believe, is still going to the final race. I don't know how high Luca has to get up the field as Dettel's coming for slicks.
He had a front wing change as well.
Is this another misdemeanor with tyres, or is this potentially the strategy call of the century? Although I haven't seen the rain looking like it's going to stop. We'll soon see.
So, a few years ago, I'm going to have a little anecdote here. A few years ago, I was in a situation where I was not in the best of positions, and it was a little bit of rain at Canada, and it said rain is looking to stop imminently. I went on to try tyres. It was still wet as the safety car went in, but within a lap, everyone had to come in for tries because it is going to dry up by the end of the following lap. So they need so everyone peeled into the pits, and you took the race lead. I took the race lead, but it was. So in that sense, for Dettel, in my mind, this is worth the risk, considering you're down to P6 anyway. The Red Bull Brent is now into the pits. He will become another one that dares to make the jump to the slick tyres on a wet circuit.
Well, this is both the advantage and the disadvantage, of course, of us not having a weather forecast. There's 12 laps to go in this race. Could there be yet another curveball in this one, as is the rain beginning to lighten up? Perhaps this is my eyes seeing things, but for Brent, who was, I believe, a few places higher up than Dettel level was, there must be something that these guys are basing this off. This can't just be a blind pit and hope. Could we perhaps see, the rain must be stopping. I'm not just seeing things. This rain is lightening up.
It definitely
Could this be a brilliant strategy call from Dettel and Brent, as I believe the safety car will be in this lap, and the rain has stopped. The rain has stopped. All of these guys now are on the wrong tyre, apart from Dettel and Brent. Wow. How much action do you want, people? This is about to be a 12-lap sprint, and we don't know what's going to happen to the end of this one.
I'm going to use a movie quote. Are you not entertained? A bit of drama. We get absolutely ready to go under the safety car. We're at 24. We'll be on lap 25. Let's do this. Thomas leads the way. Jude behind him. Gavrock in P3. They're on inters. But say Matthew Manga, Lucas, NASCAR, Liam Hardman and Luca, they're going to get underway. But Dettel and Brent on the dry compound tyres. This could be drama as you ever seen it. Lucas has decided to box now. 3-second time penalty for Dettel, as now he must have slid off circuit to gain another warning, and this is now whether the Inters still have a lap of life left or whether they will burn up too much. Thomas will lead the way ahead of Jude. Gavrock is right behind him. Luca is up the P6 down the inside. Goes the Haas of Gavrock. He makes the move, but there's a bit of contact there. Can Jude manage to defend? He doesn't quite do so. Here comes Mattia Manga now. These three drivers so closely matched into turn 4. It looks like Jude can manages to defend from Mattia. Doesn't manage to defend from Gavrock, but Mattia Manga makes the cutback. He gets a traction down towards this long right-hander now. He has the outside line. He'll have to concede as the Mercedes manages to keep P3, but not P2.
Well, if it was me, I would have cut my losses on the safety car restart. This track is drying. You're going to time. All of these drivers who are on the medium now, they're just going to be faster. And I would assume we'll see a lot of these drivers on Inters coming in soon, as Mattia has done so. But how long do you try and do this for? Do you try and even go to the end? Surely they won't last that long. This strategy is all over the place. I can't call it. The top 4 still together as we go on board with Gavroche. Luca's in now. That's crucial for him to try and gain some places here. Could the title yet be won as we go too wide through turn 3? So now a traction battle between Gavroche and Thomas. Surely they have to box. Surely they have to box. As yes, they have an 8-second gap over Detol, who was the first of the dry runners. But those Inters must be burning. I don't know how they're going to stay out to the end of this one.
Well, they must not. They probably will not do so. But if you look at the gap between Luca and Lucas, it is 2.3 seconds. Lucas came in and he was ahead of the Haas driver. He is now behind. So that staying out the extra lap has done Luca a set of wonders. Does the Williams stay out? The Williams, the championship leaders, to top second and third place people in the championship stay out. So does the 2 Mercedes behind them. But this could not be over yet, as Luca is coming back. Will come back into this. If this track dries out too much now, this could be game, set, and match for the Sauber. And they're now going to see Gavrock, Thomas, side by side, down towards turn 3. Can Haas make his move on his rival? He almost does so, but Thomas manages to break a bit later. Down towards turn 4 now. There's no DRS available for either man at this time. Here comes Jude as well. Jude is basically pushing both of these drivers along as they go into turn 4. They're both trying to get as much grip on as possible on exit, but Gavrock takes the lead once more. And here comes Jude. He tries to make a move up the inside of the Williams, but he cannot do so. These three are giving it everything. NASCAR has dropped back to P4, but do these guys pit now?
Well, I don't want to be the bringer of bad news, but I've got another curveball for you. Maybe this track isn't quite as dry as we first thought. Detol is not gaining. In fact, he's losing time to NASCAR. So do these guys surely stay out to the end? It's 7-8 laps to go. There has to be a massive swing in pace for these dry tyres. We haven't even seen a fastest lap yet from a dry shod runner. Is the impossible about to be possible? These guys on the Inters on a dry track, what seems to be a dry track, could they go to the end?
There's potential for that, but we've also got to bear in mind is a factor I had not thought of before, which we spoke about in qualifying, no less. The temperature, the weather, it does have a effect on how well the track dries and how much grip the track has. The Sauber, all the medium runners might not have the grip quite at their disposal at this stage. However, it could be time sooner rather than later as the track begins to evolve and starts to get a bit of rubber laid down. At the moment, though, It looks like those Inters are really working wonders, but the Haas is beginning to slide there, here, there, and everywhere. And at the moment, and there go fastest laps for these guys. It is getting drier, but it isn't dry enough for the dry compounded tyres. But those Inters will start to overheat sometime soon.
In a moment then, because Detol got all over those curbs in the middle sector, and I was for sure certain he was going for a little spinala. I don't think, at this current stage, at this current pace, maybe this call to go onto the mediums wasn't correct. They're not fast enough. There's 7 laps to go, 11-second gap. There has to be over a second a lap faster to even catch up to the top 4. So, once again, strategy throwing us a curveball. Maybe Luca isn't quite as in this as he thought he might have been. As these 3 up front, as NASCAR has fallen back slightly, they'll have to manage their tyres now. Oh, pardon me. As they head through this final sector, there's a lot of high-load corners here. These tyres will overheat very quickly. But for now, the fastest laps keep rolling in. All seems good in the intermediate camp, as now Detol may set a fastest lap this lap, actually. He is 8/10 up. We'll have a look. No, still not quite, but I think the crossover period is about now. But is it too little too late for these dry runners? I fear it might be.
Well, it might be a bit too late in terms of pace, but it depends on these drivers if they, Luca and Lucas, go fastest there. Their tyres are certainly working into a window. If you're these drivers on the intermediates now, you see that, you know it's time to box. You cannot stay out these tyres too much longer because they're just going to overheat and you're going to lose a lot of pace and potentially spin out or go off circuit in any way, shape or form. Despite you setting faster and faster times, you know at the moment with Luca and Lucas both setting fastest laps, it might be time. You've got to think of it. Jude makes his way into the pits. Williams, Thomas, Gavrock leading the way. Certainly going the opposite. Jude has nothing to lose at this stage really, because he knows that but these two here have a championship they can lose. These two need to make sure they finish 1-2, in which Gavrock needs to win to stay in it. Thomas needs to stay second, but it's going to be crucial to see where Jude comes out in comparison to Luca and Mattia Manga. Is it going to be time? It looks like he gets ahead quite far clear of Mattia Manga, but Luca is setting fastest lap after fastest lap at the moment. So these two will now have to make the choice. Do they pit now or do they just try and stay out just that little bit longer? Meanwhile, Brent, Dettel are starting to slowly close in, but it won't be enough unless these guys overheat their tyres.
Well, if it was me, one of these top 3 is my goodness me. Gavroche, how have you kept hold of that? Through turn 8. How? He was so full opposite lock. But if I'm one of these top 3, surely you risk it. Surely you stay out. 5 laps to go. It's a 5-lapper. Brent behind, 9 seconds to the nearest car. More than that to Thomas, so you have to get up the gap to the leader. 14 seconds, the advantage for Thomas. He can afford to be, if I do my maths right, 3.5 seconds slower a lap and still win this race. And it's a short lap round here. It's not like a Baku. It's not like a Spa. These laps will go by quickly.
Well,
I think that Thomas has got to stay out, in my opinion.
I mean, if he wants to win the title, it's going to have to be a choice he's taken. I think he might have decided to do that stay out. Gavrock has decided to pit. He's dropped behind Jude, but only just. He is on a soft compound of tyres, but will it be enough to gain on medium runners who are 3 or 4 seconds clear of them? But I don't know if it'll be enough to catch NASCAR and Thomas if their tyres do not die off. We'll be interested to see what Thomas decides to do. Does he stay out? He stays out. He's committing. This man wants to win this title, and he's going to take the chance that no one apart from that Mercedes of NASCAR has, but none of the other two top 3 have done so. Dettel will be hunting him down, but he's not hunting him down quick enough. The drivers around him are not doing their job the job when they first stayed out, and at the moment only just setting fastest laps, which will soon be captured by Jude with a 1 minute 7.4, but it's not going to be enough. Thomas just needs to keep his eye on the ball at this stage. He's got NASCAR 5.6 seconds behind. Brent going to go for a move and make the move up to P3 on Dettel. He needs to keep his eye on NASCAR and manage that gap, because as long as he can do that and manage his tyres, he has this race win in the bag.
Well, I'll take you back to the real-life example of this that I can think of. Turkey 2020. Thomas and NASCAR may as well be on slicks. It is literally like that. The slicks not performing as expected. Will Detol and Brent and co catch? They might catch NASCAR, but it's another 6 seconds up the road to Thomas. So it all hangs in the balance. These final few laps here in Austria will be pivotal to not only this race, but to how this championship turns out. Matty is the only one, I'll just go for a little aside here, Matty is the only one who's penaltyless currently. Props to him. Not that it's really going to matter, because I think that Jude doesn't have 6 seconds, if I can find the penalties. He's got 3, so it's not going to profit his position, but props to him for keeping it. Penalty free is down the inside, down into turn 3. Goes Gavroche on the soft. Gavroche and Jude will now be freed for 2.5 laps. 2.5 laps. Gap stands at 11 seconds. They're going to need a monumental final 2 laps if they're to win this one. But I've seen weirder things happen in league racing many a time. So we'll have to see. As Thomas, those tyres must not be wanting to rotate for any longer. They must be on fire, as he has a 109.4. He's still setting personal best laps. So maybe those tyres aren't falling off. As Brent picks up a 3-second time penalty, that could be crucial to his finishing position. Even Gavroche on softs, I think they will catch NASCAR, especially on penalties. I think he's got 9 seconds. So yeah, they're a net P2. I don't see them catching Thomas, if I'm honest with you.
It's at this point, it's not. I'm really starting to doubt whether Thomas can be caught, but it depends on mistakes. If Thomas makes an error, that is where Gavroche will come into play. But it looks unlikely at the moment for Gavroche. At the moment, but it looks like Brent and Dell's pace are beginning to drop off because they're starting to fall through the field. They're losing time actually to Thomas himself. And making mistakes here and there, and their task is just not really working. So Thomas is in a prime position right now. It is an excellent job from the Williams, who goes on to the final lap of the race in what is a undeniably difficult lap. His most difficult lap of the race. Dry track, completely bone dry by now, on a set of winters that are screaming. 3-second time penalty for Lucas. Gavroche set the fastest lap. He will catch and overtake NASCAR before the end of the race, so he gets into P2 on track. However, it does look like it is game, set, match for Thomas. Jude gets ahead of Brent as we go into turn 4, and Lucas and Liam Hardman begin to fight. They're going into turn 2 as they're trying to fight over the last 2 positions. Luca not really having the pace to do anything about the drivers in front. And at the moment, it looks like it's going to be Thomas's day. Goes around the final 2 corners. Just needs to hold on now. Take it a little bit easier just to make sure no penalties, nothing happens. He does so. He does it. Comes home. Wins in Austria. Takes the position he needs. Excellent drive from the Williams. P2 goes Gavroche. P3 for Jude. P4 for NASCAR and the Mercedes. Brent P5. Dettel P6. Mattia Manga, part of the non-penalty club. Up to the line, it is Liam Hardman who just gets the position over Lucas, for B9. And that is our race. Thomas takes victory in what is probably the most difficult of circumstances.
Well, I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card this afternoon. Wet to dry, but no one really knew what the tyre strategy was. Right to the very end, we were questioning whether the Williams of Thomas was going to be caught. I'll let you do the maths quickly on the title. But what a race. What a drive from Thomas. Right from the outset, he called the strategy. He made the bold statement. He started on the inters. Took the pain in the first few laps. Then stayed out on them until we got a safety car for I believe the Alpine crashing at the final corner, which threw a real curveball. With the dry weather coming not soon after and people peeling into the pits, it looked certain that they'd all have to box onto Inters, and it looked like he did a strategy blunder. We were all questioning his decision for laps on end until we realised that maybe he's actually pulled out the generational strategy call, staying out on what looked to be a bone-dry track on intermediates, doing a Lewis Hamilton, being on what must have been interslicks, probably fully slicks by the end there, and coming home to win.
Yeah, he's an excellent job. I'm just going to see if I can pull Thomas in for an interview. But I looked here, it looked like, I think, 20 points between him, Thomas and Luca by the end of that. It might be subject to change. I'll have to double check my maths. But in what was an excellent drive, it's got to be like it is very good. He started on the Inters, no less. We got to remember that he started on the Inters, and he just ended up coming home in on another set of Inters in what is a very, very difficult race from him. I have not received a reply from Thomas at the moment. I'm hoping to try and get an interview done here. If not, I might have to just leave that one there because I don't think anyone, some of these drivers are too happy about that race. But I believe that took us on 20 points by the end of it. Let's just quickly switch back to the standings. So 41 points minus 25 plus another 4. So 41 minus 21. So 20 points, yeah, between Thomas and Thomas and Luca. Gavroche, unfortunately for him, needed to win today to even get into the championship fight, and unfortunately just falls shy in P2. I believe that will be, he'll put him 31 points behind Luca, and out of the championship hunt heading to Brazil. But we've got a championship fight for tier 3: Luca, Thomas, Haas versus Williams, and okay, he says he's not doing one. Okay, he says that's fine. Yeah, Luca, Thomas doesn't want to do an interview because of his English, so it's fair enough. If you watch this back, Thomas, congratulations on your win, absolutely deserved. That means we are going to end it there. We thank you.
Pleasure as always, and that is certainly one of the more exciting races I've commentated on. I don't think we'll see that again for a little while. That's a race of the season right there.
Yep. So I'm excited for the fight. If we get to commentate this final race, I'm certainly excited. If not, you'll be seeing us on tier 6 or somewhere else probably. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see. You'll either have Andy back or you'll have us. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.